What's the first thing that comes to mind when you see a salmonid? Is it the fact that it's a fish with clothing? The gritty color palette? Or does it remind you of that one wave where you're forced on GooTuber and your team doesn't help deal with the stinger? Visual design in games are really important, especially when you want to create contrast with a cast. When you're in a frantic wave trying to fend off against a dozen boss enemies, you should be able to look up and say,
"Oh, another flyfish. Great."
But design shouldn't just be a visual indicator, it should also be a way to tell us story. Hey, if we wanted visual clarity, we'd color this guy as red for explosive and this guy as brown because he's a piece of shit. The design and details of not only character but maps usually have some kind of reason to it, and I'm here to attempt to figure out what it means. So there are two things that people have pointed out that Salmonids take inspiration from: indigenous and Spartan culture, specifically the indigenous peoples of the Northwest. There are visual correlations such as the depiction of formline art defined by the usage of UNS shapes in order to create an outline of the subject. The Salmonids brand some of their weapons with formline art of the salmon on their pans or the bags used by the steelhead and Ouroboros. Even down to the Salmonids' instincts to die for the motherland is a nod towards the Pacific Northwest indigenous people's symbolism with salmon. The salmon represent perseverance? To deliver golden eggs, sure. Self-sacrifice? I don't even know what they're sacrificing themselves for, they gave us the golden eggs. Regeneration? Shooting ballistic missiles is healing? And prosperity. Now, I'd poke fun at this last one too, but it aligns with the Salmonids' belief that death and being consumed is giving back to the world. Prosperity to the environment, if you will. Look, I'm not ranting about how these guys want to get eaten again. Salmon represent a powerful symbol important to the Pacific Northwest tribes, but definitely only leads into the symbolism, as I doubt the indigenous people operated giant machines of mass destruction. We can also see bits of Spartan inspiration, as with their mohawks resembling Corinthian helmet design. Also, the Goldie is wearing a toga. Not quite Spartan, but it is Roman. Close enough. And if I must explain it, gold represents wealth. The Goldie is made of gold. Gold is money, and is wealth. The gold. All this yakking got me thirsty. Oh. The early 17th to mid-19th century saw European traders and the indigenous trade valuable goods such as fur with weapons. You know what this kind of looks like? The more advanced Octarians traded their technology for golden eggs, an invaluable energy source. All of this goes crumbling down if the indigenous relation with salmon is a coincidence and the salmon were chosen because of funny, but with the tie-in of trading it seems like less and less of a coincidence. What isn't a coincidence is how bad Ultra Stamp is. So, there's a common trend with salmonid designs. What do we think the trend is? The fact that they are all salmon? A common theme is kitchen utensils, or more broadly, cooking and food. As with the salmonid culture holding the belief that they want to be eaten, they brandish cooking utensils in order to look palatable. We got pans, pots, grills, fish boxes, and a metal ball. Very edible. But what about more functional visual design? I made that word up. Functional visual design. It's the details of the salmonid that might help explain or back up their functionality in-game. There are canon details such as the stove under the stingray being used to heat up liquid inside the pots, or the flipper flopper using a mask to resemble a dolphin. The steel eel driver, for example, doesn't wear a mask just because he's a cool and edgy guy, or a sick semi-truck driver. Rather than just an aesthetic choice, it's there to shield from the spray that the machine produces. Malls is one I find interesting. Aside from the obvious, haha, it has a fishing lure because that's where it pops out from, but you can also spot it carrying around lunchboxes. Now, the Mons is known for its gargantuan size, but with it comes an appetite it can't sustain. They spend their time hunting for oblivious inklings and other prey, but there may be times it just can't catch anything. Fraud. But during those times, it can go through its lunchboxes to hopefully last itself a bit longer before getting its next big catch. And the Chinook, Doraemon ripoff? Wait, no, it's a helicopter. Military helicopter. It carries boxes. They also carry fish boxes, which is a very charming detail. You'd think king salmon, the bosses that we ever so fear, is this overlooming threat that can appear at any time, or a way to farm scales. You'd think that they'd be based off a sinister concept like, I don't know, the 7 deadly sins, but 3? But they really are just a play on words with their names, like the word macrodontia, which describes a condition where teeth are larger than intended, just like the megalodontia. Not only does he deck out in braces, but is given headgear. The giant, whose entire purpose is to chomp you down as headgear. The Ouroboros is based on the Ouroboros, which is an ancient Greek symbol representing the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. It's often found circling around the battlefield, like the Ouroboros. A strange detail is its light bulbs. Light is often used in many fields relating to salmon, such as light being used to act as a deterrent, preventing them from entering dangerous areas like hydroplants, or being used to herd salmon by fishermen. And what does the Ouroboros have strapped to its back? Light bulbs. If a Ouroboros is circling around an area with its light, it may be acting as a signal for the army to back off, that the battlefield is too dangerous. Alongside how the Ouroboros is meant to represent life and death, then it may be trying to facilitate the lives of its comrades. Ignore how in-game the salmon don't care. Then we have Kohozuna, which rhymes with Yokozuna. And how does that translate into this king salmon's design? He's fat. He's just fat. Look, for the first king salmon, it was a novel concept and everyone hyped it up, but with the lineup of the other two king salmon, he's kinda lacking. I mean, he does wear an anchor around his neck, which makes him look like a gangster, I guess. If you were to really stretch it, you could argue that the anchor represents the anger towards overfishing and seeks to take revenge on the inklings, kaiju style. Alright, maps. Let's just say most of the maps are just references to salmon, although marooning, meaning left behind on a deserted area, is pretty cool I guess. You can spot a lot of vegetable skewers in the distance in many of the maps, a nod towards the salmon's persistence with barbecues and trying to come off as delectable. Many of these locations are long abandoned areas that Salmonid happened to take over to use its bases. Aside from comically oversized cutlery, in Bone Rattle Arena, you can spot a cage full of fruits. Why is it in a cage? Either the salmon are keeping the fruits as a complimentary dessert for their meal, or they keep it caged because it's a prize pool for winning in the arena. Which is strange, because salmon are known to favor high protein foods, so fruit, never mind vegetables, shouldn't really be a part of the Salmonid's diet. I could be overthinking this though, it could just be bait for unfortunate inklings who forgot to pack lunch that day. That's some of the cool details I noticed about Salmonid. I definitely missed or didn't know some things about these guys, and I'm still praying for more lore about salmon. I didn't really care about Salmon Run that much until I started looking into this stuff, but this really gave me a new appreciation for the game mode and its vibes. Now if you don't mind me, I had way too much speculation juice to drink and I think I just need to take a rest.